Hi, I'm Chicobiko. Today I'm going to teach you how to use Blender to make an animation spreadsheet and then export it into a format that's compatible with RPG Maker. Blender is a very powerful tool. You can create, for example, a very high quality, real, lifelike images. But we are not going to do that in this tutorial. Um, I'm just gonna teach you guys the bare minimum how to run this software to make animation for RPG Maker. And the first thing that I want to do is to enlarge my UI a bit so I can see a bit better. I'm recording this using my laptop and it's quite small, so I couldn't look at everything at once. Okay, now I'm going to teach you how to move around your scene. This box over here is your scene. You can use your middle mouse button to zoom in and zoom out, or you hold it to rotate your view. And then you can use you see we have three objects over here. We can use the right mouse button to select the objects, and then you can use shift and your middle mouse button to pan around your scene. And then you see this crosshair over here. This is basically your cursor. If you want to create an object or anything, it's going to be created from that cursor. So if I, like for example, I'm gonna move the cursor over here, and then I'm creating a new object like a sphere. It's going to be created there. Move here, create a new object. See, well, you get the idea. So the first thing we are going to do is, well, we're actually going to start making it now, because I think that's all you need to know about moving around, moving in your scene. So I'm just going to delete everything that we have here because we don't need it, and I'm going to put the cursor back to where it belongs using Shift C. I'm going to also delete this lamp over here because we're not going to need it. And then last is our camera. First, the camera is a bit on, I guess, 45 angle. I'm going to make it facing front. So first I'm going to Alt R to reset, to clear its rotation, and then Alt G to clear its location. Move it back to the this is the center of the screen. And I'm going to also turn off the perspective because I think it's easier to work with orthographic projection. Next, I'm going to camera to the left view, and I'm going to rotate it with the R button. But I like to keep things as exact as possible, so I'm going to type 90, so it's going to be rotated on 90 degrees. Okay, there you go. And I'm going to move the camera. Well, by default you can move your camera by pressing G to move the camera or any object or you can use the arrows to move it in accordance to the axis, the three axes, X, Y, and Z axis. And I'm going to move it back, like way back. That way we have this whole grid for us to put every object that we're going to animate. If you're making something larger than this grid, then, well, you can always push it back. It's just there to tell you where it is. Next we have layers. This 20 squares over here are your layers, and you don't have to use them all. I usually use the first layer to put my camera and I guess my lamp if I'm using one. So I'm going to move to the second layer to create my object. I'm going to make a plane. Yeah, Shift A, mesh, and then go to plane. um, this is where I want the particles to be created. So I'm also going to name my my plane. You click N, you press N, and then you scroll to item. I'm going to name this emitter, emitter dot one. It's a good practice to name your objects on the scene in case you have a lot of objects, so just better for organization, so it doesn't confuse you and that you ask them like where is where and which object is which. Next I'm going to split the screen, maybe split this triangle over here is how you split the screen, and you click it and then push it back to erase the view. So now I have two views. I'm gonna set one to view the camera view. Oh, the camera is still using the default 1080 resolution, and I don't want that. The default RPG Maker is 192 by 192, and set the scaling, the render resolution to 100. Okay, now, as you can see that this is the camera view, because like on the first layer, you press shift and click on that layer to view two layers at once. It's not showing anything. Because it's a flat surface, so I'm going to move it down over here. Yeah. Camera, well, I guess I don't have to explain to you what the camera does, but you can like set up all of your animations here, and then like you can work on positioning the camera later on once you're done with everything. But I usually set up my camera early on, so I can easily do it like this, two views at once, so I know what I'm making and how big I need the animations to be. And for now the plane is a bit small, so I'm going to use S to scale it around this size and maybe rotate it. Press R and press Z because I want to rotate it on Z axis. If you don't press R, if you just press R, it's going to rotate depending on your current view over here, but I want it to like very exact, so I'm going to press Z and then type 45. That way it's shaped like a diamond. And I'm going to push it back, push the camera back a little, so yeah, I have the whole diamond here, diamond shape. Okay, next we're going to set up the particle system. So you're going to go to this twinkle star thing, and then you're gonna add new particle system. This is your timeline. If you press Alt A, it will start the animation up until 250 frame, and I don't think even RPG Maker can run 250 animations, so press escape to stop the animation, and I'm going to set it to 30, so we have 30 frames to work with. And as you can see, the particles are generated and it's gonna fall down because it follows the gravity. So I'm going to turn off the gravity so the particle will float. Go to field weights, this gravity over here, you set it to 0, so now you see that it starts to float a bit. Why is it floating if the gravity is set at 0? That is because the plane is by default it has innate velocity set here. This velocity tab here, it's set at the normal. The normal is the direction of this plane, which is it's pointing up, and it has the power of 1, so it's pushing the particle by 1, and we can adjust this to like 0, so it doesn't have power anymore. It's just being generated and then dies on its own. Or you can like um, push it to 5 and it will push the particle upwards. And I'm going to set this velocity back to 0 because I think it's too fast, and I'm going to set it into -1. Oh yeah, -1, so it flows a little bit slowly and gracefully. And by default it's generating 1000 of these little things over from the first frame to the last frame of 200. And since we have shortened the our animation into 30 frames, you only see just a couple of these. So I'm going to set the end number into maybe 5. It looks really ugly. And set the lifetime to 10, I guess. So yeah, that's not pretty cute. There are too many particles, so I'm going to set it to 50. Actually, maybe I'm going to turn up the power a little bit so it flows. Set it to 10 maybe. Yeah. So by default, if you render this, it's going to show up like this, and it's not really pretty. It's just generating random halos and also the plane itself. So let's fix that. First I'm going to go to the render settings of your plane. By now it is rendering the emitter, and we don't want that. We just want this plane over here to be the starting point of our particles. So we're going to turn off the emitter off. Wait, I'm checking it. Now if you render it again, you see that this box is now gone. And I don't want it to be gray. Oh, might as well explain it now. This is the world settings. The world setting is where your scene is happening. You can set this color over here into maybe blue and then render it. Yeah, it's going to show up like as if the sky is blue. And or we can turn it down to black. So yeah, now that looks more like it. Oh, if you want to render without a background, you go to the render here, go all the way back to shading, and this alpha, you set it to transparent. And if you run this, ta-da, you just see those little cute sparkles. But for this tutorial, I'm going to make it into sky, so it's going to show up black. Yeah, that's just how I like it. Why do I want to set it black? Because if you set it to additive, I don't know. Well, I tried experimenting, so it really depends on your animation. I feel like if you set it to black instead of using transparent, you can push the colors of these particles so it show up a little bit more beautifully when rendered. But maybe that's just me. It's also make it easier for compositing, which I will also talk about later. So for now, it's generating this random twinkly spheres, and it's really ugly. So I'm going to cancel the render view by pressing escape, and I'm going to layer, I don't know what number of layers this, but I'm going to create a plane. This is our, what you call it, what your um, particle, the particle. I wanted to emit this little box over here, so I'm going to name it helium 1. So when we go back to second layer and go to this particle settings, you want to go to render and you want to click on object, and this we can set it to helium 1, the name we just choose. So now instead of emitting random spheres, it's emitting the plane we just created. And right now it doesn't, it's really small, so I'm going to turn the size of it. Okay, maybe that's too big actually. Maybe for us to see better, we're going to attach textures into this plane. So doing that, we need to set up a material. I think another engine, another software, they call it, like in for 3ds Max, you call it shaders. We call it material here. So I'm going to add new. I'm going to name it helium 1. And yeah, by default this is what you get, but we're going to change that by making everything transparent. So we activate the transparency, set it all the way back to 0, so it's practically invisible, but we're going to change that later. Then we're going to set the texture. This texture will decide the transparency of the object as well as the color. So click new to add new texture. I'm going to name it helium 1. I'm going to set the preview to both, and I'm going to open. So I forgot, where did I put it? Oh, I'm going to pick the layers, the color that I choose, but I don't remember where did I put it. I put it in Dropbox, and is it public? Oh yeah, this is yeah, you can set up PSD, but I usually use either JPEG or PNG. The difference between this JPEG is that it has black background, and this PNG doesn't have doesn't have any background, so it's perfectly transparent. And I'm going to show you how to the setting for both of this type of images. So first I'm going to load up hel1.jpg. It doesn't show up anything yet, but let's set this display into material maybe, and then ignore all these settings. And actually we do we have to ignore it? Oh, anyway, might as well just set it. So the method of placing this, I mean, how do I say it? Sorry guys, I'm not explaining. This image that you load, it needs to be it needs to have a way of displaying the image onto the object, and it's usually much more makes sense when we are working with spheres or something that has 3D shape. But this is just a single plane, but we might still need to do this. So I'm just going to go to change this 3D view into UV image editor. Oh, it's still showing the previous render results. Just press X. So, and then we're going to edit mode by pressing tab. So this is the edit mode. That one before is the whole thing. So we're going to edit it. Oh, by the way, you can like move things around with this vertices of your 3D shape, but I'm not going to explain much about it because it can be a little bit overwhelming, and you don't practically need that for this tutorial. But you're gonna want to press U to unwrap the whole thing into, yeah, that's how it's going to map the 3D shape into a flat plane over here for you to put your images in. And I'm going to choose the heel one. Yeah, so it's going to map this 4 vertices square shape into the image that we just loaded. Now we're gonna press tab to go back, and we're going to go back to our material setting, texture settings, and set it to color. I'm going to check alpha 2. Oh, all right. And you're going to want to turn off the color for this one and set the RGB to intense. Yes, it is showing. So why is it black? Because, well, it's only if we put a lamp over here. Actually change that lamp type to area. No, it still doesn't show. Yeah, so if it's since it's just a regular shader, it's going to be affected by the lighting of your scene. So like for example, I have this spot lamp over here, and it's only white around the area where the lamp is shining. But lamps took a lot of processing power, and it's also going to make your rendering times longer. So that's why I usually don't use lamps unless I really need lamps. For example, like making a lifelike object. For example, if I'm making an animation of a rock, meteor, or whatever, that's when I use lamps. But for particles, I don't use lamps, so I can just delete this lamp. And to make it white, you're going to want the object to become a lamp as well, and you do that by setting this one. Set the shading emit to 1. Now the plane itself is generating light, that's why it looks whiter now. If I want to color this texture, this image, we can just go to diffuse and pick any of the colors over here. Maybe I'm going to set it to a bit golden sunlight-ish, like this. Yeah, this looks good. And that's pretty much it. Now we go back to this one. Oh, see, it's already generating duplicating this one over here. So if we run the animation, it's generating those circles up in the air, and it still doesn't look like a healing animation yet, but we're going to change that. So this back to 3D view. First, you want this papers, as I like to call it, to face the camera. So this rotation, no, not rotation. Oh yeah, you're gonna want to go to this layer over here. I'm going to the left view, press R and rotate it to face the camera. See, that's facing the camera now. It's not, because I haven't checked rotation over here. Yep, now it is just as I wanted. Now we can go back to actually adjusting this emitter over here. Next, I'm going to put the random size to probably around this number. It's really just like trial and error to see what looks good. Oh, I think it looks more natural now. And then set this stuff again thing. Yeah, it now flows a little bit more arbitrarily. I'm going to leave it at 3. So if you like how this looks, but doesn't quite like the movement, or I don't know, anything, you can like change the seat over here to randomize it further, but with the same settings. This over here, just keep it checked until you're satisfied with it. Okay, so that's one healing animation. Actually, maybe I'm going to put this into 10. So if you look over here in your timeline, you see these red lines. This is the duration of your whole your whole particle system. It's rendering it, and the last few frame here is where everything is just going to be pitch black. So we might want to cover a little bit more, like extending it into 50. Actually, maybe 20 is the number. Yeah, now it looks more like a healing animation. So if you stop it right here, go to render. Nah, it's gonna look like an actual healing animation. So what else we can improve on this? I'm going to add another image into our particle. So right now it's only generating one. I'm going to make another copy of this. How do you copy? By pressing Shift D. Just place it anywhere, because the placement of this particle doesn't really matter, I believe. Actually, maybe it does, but well, we can just reset its location later on. I'm gonna go to N, rename it Healing 2, so we know that this is the second healing image that we're going to use, and then go to Material and make a new material. Since we already have pretty much all the settings, no, actually, I'm going to make a new material because the other image might use another setting. So I'm gonna press X to erase the material, add a new one, call it Healing 2, and like before, we're going to set the transparency to back to 0, so it's not showing anything at the moment. Go to texture settings, set it to make a new texture, name it Healing 2. Open another one. This one. So this Heal 2. See, this is the PNG file, the one that doesn't have a background already attached to it, so it's transparent already. We're gonna set it to alpha. Now it's immediately, we don't have to. The difference between using the JPEG texture and PNG texture is this RGB to intensity. Basically, it's telling it's telling Blender that instead of using color, please convert the color into black and white values that you can use to determine whether this is 1 or 10. So this image, black is basically transparent, and the lighter it is, like this is like slightly yellowish, it's very close to 0, very close to opaque. That's what I'm looking. Yeah, opaque. So the wider it is, the more opaque that area is, if that makes sense. Well, anyway, I'm just going to move on. So this one over here, it's still black because it's still affected by lighting. So I'm going to set it into a lamp as well by setting this into 1. So now we have 2 images. But how are we going to generate both of them into one particle system? You see, it only has one drop down to select which object that you want to use as the particle. We're gonna first put both of these 2 shapes into group by pressing, actually is it yes, Control G, create new group. I'm going to name this group Healing. Close the back. Now we go back to our emitter and we select group, and then we select the healing group that we just created. Now it's generating both of them in random order, and it's now look a little bit more natural, I guess. Yeah, a little less random. If this still doesn't look like what you wanted to achieve, I usually make it a little bit more randomized by increasing the size. Say put it 3 maybe and see how it looks. Yeah. Oh, it's a little bit buggy. If it's built like that, you could just reset the seat. Yeah, if it is too big, I guess set it to 2 and see how that looks when rendered. Yeah, that kind of looks like a healing animation now. And maybe I placed it a little bit too low, so I'm going to take it up a bit. So now it's on the center of the screen. Yeah, that looks like a healing to me. Up next, I think we are pretty much done. There's a lot more thing that you can play around with it, like play with the settings. Maybe I'm going to go over that in the next video, but this is, and this is done. Okay, not really, because see, this is not quite healing-ish yet. It's very unprocessed, I guess. What else we can do to make this look better? Compositing, yeah, compositing. I did said in the beginning of the video that I'm going to teach you guys how to do compositing, so that is what we're going to do. So now we're going to what is compositing? Compositing is basically you filter and post-process everything that you just made. This looks basic at the moment, and you want to make it look pretty. Apply a filter over it. That's where compositing is going to go. And to go to compositing, you go to node editor, and this is your node editor right now. It's pointing to material. We're gonna set it to render, and I'm going to enlarge this screen a little bit. I'm going to go to use nodes. So now it is letting our render to be controlled by these nodes over here. Okay, the first thing that I usually do, navigation is same actually with moving in 3D view. You can pan around. Actually, panning around, you hold your mouse button, your middle mouse button to pan around, and middle mouse button to zoom. But choosing your nodes is pretty much the same by clicking on this, using your right mouse button to choose, and we're gonna go add a new node. Go to filter. Actually, maybe we want to go to converter. Is it converter? Is it filter? I think it's filter. Oh, glare, I guess. Yeah, it is glare. Oh, actually, I want to view how it looks like in the final result. So I'm going to add layout reroute node over here, close to the output, and then create output one viewer. Put the viewer here to here, and check backdrop images. So now we can view our render in the background. Zoom it a little to too big, to 2.5. Yeah, okay. No, it looks distorted. So I'm just going to if we don't want to particularly edit this layer, we can move the timeline maybe around this and see how it looks. Yeah, I think this one looks pretty. So I'm going to go with this frame over here. First, I'm going to change from streaks to fog glow, I guess. I'm going to lower the threshold down. You see now it sparkles, it's shiny. You can increase the size up to 9, I guess is the maximum, but it's going to be bleed into the frame. So usually I go with 6. Yeah, 6 looks good. And then maybe adjust the color a little bit by giving a hue saturation value. Slide over here, slightly blue. Mm. Okay, this one looks good. Yeah, I think that's all we need right now. So this particular uh, post processing flow is going to be applied on all of the frames when you render it into animation. So now we're going to see how it looks after it's being composited. So go to render over here, go to output and change the output into, well, wherever you want. I'm going to put it here. Make a new folder by clicking on this button, or not. No, that's not how you create a folder. Create new directory. Name your new folder is renderer sub. So it's going to render all of your animations here, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to lift this to render, and then I'm going to go back and record. To render your animation, you just click on this animation button over here, render active scene, and it's just gonna render it for you. So I'll see you guys after this is done. So I kind of screwed up, and even though I already make a new folder for the render, I forgot to assign it in the output. So, well, I'm just gonna move it manually there, learn from my mistakes. And these are the image sequences that was generated using Blender, and we cannot use this with RPG Maker on MV yet, so we're going to adjust them a little bit. It's not really adjusting. I'm going to use this super amazing software called GlueIt. I'm going to include the link in the description box. It's free to use, and you can live it up this software. Like you can just string the images inside Photoshop or any tool at your choice. But if you have a lot of animation, like I have like around 300 skills or not more, and that doesn't even count the animation for states, overlay, and whatnot. I really like to use this tool because it's very fast and, well, a lot faster than actually manually arranging them in Photoshop. So you wanna add, go to, where's that? I put it in the healing. So you want to load all of this images, open, and yeah, everything is on the right number. Set the number of columns of 5 because that's what RPG Maker use. But delay 50 doesn't matter. This is just for the preview. Click GlueIt, and this is how the image spread should look like, and press play to preview it. So there you go. It looks really amazing. The transition might be a little bit jaggy, but it's fine for now because it's not going to be noticeable anyway. Let's save it into your animation folder. Just put it in my own game for now. Healing. Save it, exit, and there you go. There's your animation spreadsheet. It's it's a lot of images. I think 30 frames is an overkill. Uh, you could do maybe 15 frames or less. I go by how much is it? Where is it that file? Yeah, my healing skill I also have 20 frames. So usually I just like delete the even numbers. So like healing, like usually I would delete the odd numbers 7. So maybe it's easier to like this, delete everything here, and I can generate less frames now. um, yep, that looks more like it. um, Go to here, image, animation, healing, but it's really optional. It really just depends on uh, the duration of your skill you want it to be. Like maybe if you can make an explosion or flame burst, I don't know, something supernova. Longer frame is maybe enough, but I think 15 frame is more than enough for a simple healing skill, so that's what I go with. So I guess that's it. I would totally preview this on my RPG Maker MV, but well, my laptop is quite old and uh, it's gonna lag really slow if I run RPG Maker on top of this. So well, at least you guys got a preview of how it looks. Um, so yeah, there. I hope you guys learn anything from this tutorial, and if there's any suggestion, like what do you want to see to be made, like fire effects or water effects, well, let me know, and I'll I think this already covered the basics, but if you still think that there anything else that I can teach you guys, let me know in the comments. So thank you, and thanks for watching, and goodbye.